Oh my gosh, people. Did you see what Fauci said a while ago? Just recently, I think it was about a week and a half ago. He's telling people to double mask. He said double masking makes common sense, or it seems like it makes sense, or whatever he said. I don't need to quote directly because I know that he said double masking, period. And this is because we're seeing these variants of this virus out here in the wild now that are coming from all over the globe. The virus is mutating. Coronavirus is mutating. It's becoming and taking on new strains. We're going to talk about masks. We're going to talk about exactly the difference between a mask and a respirator, and the different types of masks and the different type of respirators. And, you know, we just got to help people understand, because this is getting more critical. Yes, hospitalizations are going down. I'm not mad about that. No one's mad about that. But the problem is the education around masks has not been robust enough. And everyone knows that that has been a big failure point. A lot of folks have swarmed into the space and made all sorts of entrepreneurial inroads. And I'm not trying to get in their way either, but I need you guys to understand what's a real mask, or what should it do, how should it be constructed, how to tell fakes from the true thing, and also, you know, what should you wear? What would I recommend as a very discerning engineer who's trying to avoid corona? Let's talk. So today we're going to be reviewing the best respiratory protection measures available as of winter 2021 against the virus SARS-CoV-2, known as coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2. Now, this is the virus which causes coronavirus disease, which is abbreviated as COVID-19. Okay, y'all all know COVID-19. Now, what we are working to do in the fight against this virus at this point is to prevent the spread and to create time for people to get vaccinated. We still need to keep our hospitals from overflowing. We still need to protect people from dying. But once we hit a certain percentage of total population vaccinated, the virus will start to be under control per se and trend towards eradication. The three doorways to infection are respiratory, digestive, and mucosal. Now we're going to focus on respiratory as that makes up the majority of the transmissibility of this virus. However, I will remind us of a couple things. First, keep diligent about using hand sanitizer after leaving a store or a public place. Washing your hands when you get home still applies even if you use hand sanitizer. Wiping down high-touch surfaces in your home, especially when you have people from outside coming in. And yes, I subscribe to wiping down new products that you bring into your home. And don't forget, don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth without knowing for certain your hands are clean. I know that sounds juvenile, but don't do it. Essentially, at the end of the day, the truth is we're trying to reduce the amount of coronavirus that gets into our system, if any at all. So blocking its entry or killing it before it can enter is paramount. Kill as much of it as you can. Unfortunately, this is not an exact science, right? What this means by not being an exact science is that this is based on limited experimentation and a lot of observation, interpolation, and educated guessing. As of today, and probably always, all of this is imperfectly understood. There are things we think we understand, but more research eventually concedes that we didn't have it quite right, something we didn't pick up on, but at that time it was the best information we had and we acted on it, and that's fine. But there's still plenty of science to be executed, and it's always progressing. So in that same spirit, today I'm presenting the best of what I know right now. This is my educated opinion based on the scientific studies, the official guidance, and my own observations. I am not a healthcare professional. I am not an epidemiologist. Now, there are two categories of mitigation devices for controlling respiratory spread, which you can employ. There are masks, and then there are respirators, okay? People are not doing a great job about differentiating these two things. Medically speaking, there are differences between these two, masks and respirators, and I'm going to explain what each one of them really are. Let's start with masks. Masks are what most people love to hate, especially in the US. Masks are the loose to moderate fitting multi-layer face coverings that go over your nose and your mouth. They just cover your nose and your mouth up, okay? They don't seal. They range from facial coverings up to surgical masks, and they include fabric or cotton masks you even make at home. They are intended to arrest your potentially infectious oral and nasal moisture particles from getting out into the open environment. They are an important part of our battle against the spread of coronavirus. That's because they decrease the transmission through reducing the number of potentially infectious particles expelled into the open environment by the mask wearers. And they can also, to some extent, reduce the amount of infectious particles that a mask wearer inhales. The amount you inhale is important because, presuming you run into viral particles in an open air or in a space you enter, or an infectious person, the amount of infectious particles or inoculum you take in to your body within a certain window of time can make the difference between not getting COVID-19 at all versus a mild case of COVID-19 versus a severe case of COVID-19, okay? The higher the dosage of coronavirus, the sicker you get. This is still holding true even with these new mutations and variants of the virus that are coming out. There are two major classes of masks: surgical or procedure masks, and then face masks. Now listen, the top mask of both of those classes would be an FDA cleared ASTM level 1, 2, or 3 surgical mask. They're also called procedure masks, so those are sometimes interchangeably used, but the key thing here is that those masks carry an ASTM rating. ASTM stands for the American Society for Testing and Materials, and they require these masks be tested to specific levels of fluid resistance, breathability, bacterial filtration, particulate filtration, and flammability. Now, the FDA will only clear a medical use of a surgical mask. It will only be called a surgical mask when it meets those ASTM requirements. Now, surgical masks are the workhorses of the medical community. However, despite having filtration requirements in the ASTM guidelines, they are not designed to protect the wearer against infectious airborne diseases such as coronavirus or COVID-19. They assist with preventing some inhalation of particles in the air to a degree, but since they, like all other masks, are not sealed to the face, they have very limited protection. Now, this is despite what people may be saying in their marketing or even in the news in regards to filtration ability of that mask. See, what they're doing is they're reporting filtration data on the mask media when it's sealed to a testing apparatus. That's unrealistic to how a mask really sits on a human face. Masks are usually not sealed, and I'm going to talk about some exceptions, so they can't guarantee they're filtering out the air you're inhaling. But there are some that do have a seal, and we're gonna look at some in the next video. What's the difference between a surgical mask and a face mask? Well, it's simple. Certification. See, you can't claim you have a surgical mask without it being FDA cleared. And you also can't claim, for instance, as a good example, you can't claim you have a respirator in the United States without it having NIOSH certification. You can, however, claim that something is only a face mask without any testing or certification right now, even if that face mask might be constructed and look identical to a surgical mask or respirator. I know that sounds crazy, but again, in the US, according to the CDC right now, if they don't say it's a surgical mask, nor do they say it's a NIOSH respirator, then it starts to qualify as a face mask. And if it's a face mask under the current umbrella emergency use authorization, you don't have to do anything special to sell it other than to state that it is not a medical device on the packaging. Nearly everything that's neither an FDA cleared surgical mask nor a NIOSH respirator falls into that middle category called face masks. And basically, that can be anything, like I said, from a cut-up t-shirt or bandana to a Ralph Lauren custom design face piece with filter inserts, right? Now, let's talk about this. Nationally recognized makers of surgical masks are gonna be companies like Cardinal Health, Hallard, and Alpha Protect. However, since the pandemic started and supplies ran very low, the FDA has authorized medical facilities to use face masks in place of surgical masks when absolutely necessary. So you can see people wearing something that may not look like a traditional surgical mask. Now, this is a wild, wild west. Chinese companies running gangbusters, making good and bad products and pushing them across the water to the highest bidders because everyone's wanting to have face coverings, and that's fine. Meanwhile, domestic entrepreneurs are becoming distributors overnight and even making their own variations of cloth masks on sale on eBay, Amazon, Etsy, you name it, they're selling it. Now, people are gonna ask the final strong question, right? How do I find a good mask? Where do I find a good mask, Darvell? Well, I'm going to be recommending and reviewing some very specific masks in this following video. And I will warn you of this right now, however. You won't probably find those professional grade masks I mentioned earlier, those brands. You won't find them necessarily out in the open market. But if you do, grab them. However, I do suggest that if you're looking for basic face masks, like, the surgical looking type, check out CVS and Walgreens, or look online. Any pharmacy that's reputable, or look online. And I say that because health stores like CVS or pharmacy, etc., they are going to have self-branded masks that they're going to stand behind because they carry their store's brand and weight. Online, you can do research on the manufacturer and understand the specs and what the reviews say. So you have a lot more leniency and time to deal with that stuff when you look online. So the pharmacies are a good bet as long as it's the house brand, and then also online is a good bet if you can do the research. Now let's talk about respirators. I told you there's a difference between respirators and masks, right? So let's get into it. So listen, respirators are the king of self-protective measures, including defense against airborne diseases such as coronavirus or COVID-19. No, again, neither surgical or face masks are respirators, but respirators can function as masks. Not only do respirators protect you from the environment, they also prevent you from contaminating the environment. They do both. Respirators bring that certified two-way protection to the table, that NIOSH N95 or greater certification, whereas a mask is only designed to provide half that. Now, a key characteristic of a respirator is that part of the certified proper use of a respirator mandates an airtight 360-degree seal between that filtration media and your face. That's something that you absolutely are not guaranteed with most masks, and they don't even design them to do that. Traditional medical use of those respirators actually require you to get fit tested. If you're going to use anything that has a seal to the wearer's face, that actually has to be tested, that specific model, to your specific face, because everyone's face and skin is different, and you might work better with one model or one brand over the other. And if it's not properly sealed, that could result in spreading disease in a hospital or inhaling noxious or dangerous fumes on a job site, because they do use N95s for jobs other than healthcare. Now, this is not something, this fit test, this is not something you're going to do by accident or at home alone. This is something that you're going to have to work with someone trained to do. They're going to use either a challenge agent or a leak tester. As far as respirators in the United States, like I said, they have to be NIOSH certified as N95 face piece respirators. When they have that certification, those are usually made by leading manufacturers such as 3M, Honeywell, Kimberly-Clark, and there are some others. You can go to the CDC website and look at the NIOSH certified manufacturers and respirator models. Now, here's a key. All NIOSH certified respirators should include the NIOSH logo, or it should say NIOSH written on it somewhere, and it should include their approval number. You can cross-reference on the CDC's website. Now that we understand that a respirator provides a seal to the face, but a mask merely covers the face, do not conflate the two devices. Many people, even writers, the news organizations, and others, can be seen using those two terms interchangeably, confusing potentially broad sectors of the public. Let's not do that. Now, understanding that masks and respirators are different, respirators are better than masks, and since they are that much better and they provide that guarantee, we reserve them for healthcare workers who are committed to working directly in the line of danger daily with guaranteed infectious COVID-19 patients in close quarters. That's a far shot different than us in the office, the grocery store, even pharmacies, where we're not necessarily dealing with a ton of people, let alone a ton of infectious people, and we can also implement social distancing and other controls to limit our risk. And that is part of the nexus that drove us towards face masks, and that's also been undergirded by the fact we didn't have enough NIOSH certified respirators to go around even for healthcare professionals when the pandemic really started taking off. We didn't have enough. And that's why they told people not to buy these respirators. It's a little different now. We're going to talk about that in the next video, but it left us with a dilemma back then. How can laymen on the street protect their respiratory health in a more effective, positive manner? Well, the answer still was anything that you can put on your face that isn't a respirator from That's it. Literally anything. This went from telling everyone to make homemade masks again, from t-shirts and socks and drawers, to a booming industry of consumer PPE, ripe with everything from counterfeits to pharmaceutical grade face gear. So we're gonna talk about these different types. I got some right here. Got a couple different masks here, right? We got this looks like a surgical mask, but it's not. It's actually just a face mask. That's why I'm telling y'all need to be careful. This is a fabric face mask, right? But there's something about this that is much different than this. This is a homemade fabric face mask, right? This is a different animal than what I just showed you in a sense, because guess what? This guy is not breathable. This guy is. And last but not least, this is a NIOSH N95 respirator, okay? So yeah, so now we are going to move forward and review some of the most prominent mask brands and construction types, alongside with other options that fill the spectrum of consumer PPE for preventing community spread and providing personal protection against the coronavirus. And I'm gonna give you my recommendations like I said before, but first of all, I wanted to make sure that everyone understood the difference between a mask and a respirator. And then when we're talking about masks, we understand that masks, there are two essential classes of masks. There are face masks, and then there are surgical masks. So anyway, people, thank you for taking some time to watch this first video in the series. We're gonna get into the next one, and let's start talking about specific masks, the pros and cons, how they work, and what you should get.